Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura,
said that if there was a time when you were getting beat up in a room and couldn't walk out, you would reimagine it in a way that you were actually able to leave the room.
You were in the courtroom. I want to get your sense of how the jury was reacting to Cassie's testimony throughout the week, especially.
The courtroom fell silent until the bomb dropped. Cassie Ventura, 9 months pregnant and ice calm on the witness stand, looked the judge dead in the eye and said it out loud. "He turned me into a sex object. In week 1. Wait, what? Week 1. Not year, not even month. Day 7 into dating Diddy. And she says he had already started pimping her out behind the red carpets. And boss, that's when all hell broke loose. Diddy, Mr. Bad Boy, mogul, untouchable icon, snapped. His legal team fumbled. The jury stared. His composure cracked like cheap glass under pressure. And just like that, the courtroom went from trial to trauma theater, because this wasn't just an accusation. This was a full expose of the private nightmare behind Diddy's diamond-covered empire. Secret parties, coercion, and control disguised as luxury. Cassie didn't just tell her story. She detonated it, with details that made grown reporters shake and the internet erupt. So now we ask the real question: did Diddy build an empire of hits or an underground empire of horror? They say behind every powerful man there's a woman holding it all together. But in Diddy's case, behind the flashing lights, platinum records, and private jets, there was Cassie Ventura. And according to her, she wasn't holding it together. She was being held hostage, and not with ropes or handcuffs, boss, with money, power, manipulation, and something even darker: silence. Because what the public thought was a glossy celebrity relationship was, in Cassie's own words, a prison sentence. Let's break this down.
Combs' ex-girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, is set to retake the stand and face what we expect to be her final round of questioning under cross-examination. Court currently is on a short lunch break, but if you recall, the judge previously said that he wanted Ventura's cross-examination to wrap up before lunch today. Prosecutors have said that Ventura, who's nearly 9 months pregnant, could soon go into labor.
Over the last hour, the defense has been asking Ventura more about her 2018 rape allegation against Combs, Ventura's drug use, her mental health problems, and a 2014 threat that she made to a man who claimed he had seen a sexually explicit tape of her, also raised in court. The defense at one point asking Ventura, quote, "Do you still have love for him?" referring to Combs, and Ventura answered by saying, quote, "I have love for the past and what it was."
It all began in 2007. Diddy, at the peak of his mogul status, spotted Cassie, a rising singer with a hit single and a face that made headlines. To the world, it looked like a Cinderella moment. He took her in, signed her, styled her, and started what many assumed was a music-fueled romance. But what Cassie revealed under oath shattered that fairy tale image like a wine glass dropped on marble. She said the relationship turned predatory almost immediately. The first week, she told the court, he took full control. My clothes, my calendar, my body, everything was his. And that's where the term freak-off parties entered the chat.
Defense is right when they say that Cassie Ventura is the most critical witness to this case. The defense is doing its job because what they're trying to do is bring out that she's not a perfect person, that they're saying she might have wanted to engage in these freak-offs on more than one occasion, that she was willingly staying in this relationship with Sean Combs, even though she knew that it was an abusive one. They're bringing out things that she said to other people that are less than flattering. All that being said, the government doesn't need to have a perfect victim. What the government has done this week essentially is establishing the sex trafficking crimes that they've charged Sean Combs with. And I would argue that they are well on their way to proving these crimes. A lot of people don't realize that with sex trafficking, you don't have to have movement anywhere. You don't have to go across state lines. A lot of times people confuse it with human smuggling. Here, somebody can be trafficked in their own home. All you really need is someone providing somebody else for that commercial sex act. And when I say commercial, I mean anything of value, not even necessarily money, to be given by force or coercion. And so Cassie Ventura has done her job this week for the government, and now the defense is doing its job to try to make it seem as if she wanted to be in this relationship and that what happened in those freak-offs was not coerced.
According to Cassie, these weren't your typical Hollywood after-parties with champagne and red carpets. No, boss. These were private gatherings, invitation only, where the price of entry wasn't money. It was obedience. Women were allegedly expected to perform, entertain, and please. And Cassie? She says Diddy made it clear that her attendance wasn't optional. He told me, "This is how we keep power. This is how we stay on top." That's a direct quote. She described it like being in a movie, except she wasn't acting, and the horror was real. Guests included celebrities, executives, and friends of the empire. But behind closed doors, it was all about control. What she wore, who she interacted with, where she sat, when she smiled. Diddy, Cassie claimed, was choreographing her life like a sick performance. And boss, it didn't stop there. She recalled nights where she'd be told to entertain someone without warning. No explanation, just a command, and the message was always clear. Say no, and everything you've been given disappears. It wasn't love. It wasn't even protection. It was a transaction, wrapped in designer, soaked in fear, and the court? Stunned. Lawyers stopped taking notes. The audience leaned in. Even the judge had to call for a 5-minute recess just to let the room breathe. But not Diddy. He didn't breathe. He didn't blink. He snapped. According to courtroom witnesses, the moment Cassie mentioned being used as a tool for power during these freak-off parties, Diddy slammed his pen, leaned into his lawyers, and muttered something under his breath. His entire demeanor changed, from stone-faced mogul to a man unraveling. And let's not forget, this is a man who's been in countless lawsuits, scandals, beefs, and industry wars. But this one broke him, because this wasn't a civil case about royalties or trademarks. This was a courtroom confession of sex trafficking, control, and calculated abuse. Let's talk about how deep this went. Cassie claimed Diddy tracked her location. She wasn't allowed to leave without permission. He chose her outfits, often requiring her to wear specific things that fit the fantasy of the party. He assigned who she spoke to and who she didn't. It was control on a microscopic level, and for years, no one said a word. Why? Because Diddy's image was bulletproof. A hip-hop mogul, a businessman, a philanthropist. He threw white parties in the Hamptons, walked red carpets at the Met Gala, launched vodka brands, ran fashion lines, and always smiled like a man who had nothing to hide. But Cassie? She says behind that smile was a man who thrived on dominance, who weaponized luxury, and who made her believe that silence was her only option. And then, the prosecution dropped the hammer. Surveillance footage. From a 2016 incident Cassie had referenced. And although the footage wasn't shown publicly, it was described in the courtroom as damning. She was seen cornered, visibly distressed and trying to leave, only to be blocked and yelled at. That one moment shifted everything. The jury stiffened, Diddy's team panicked, and every attempt to paint this as a toxic love story suddenly looked like a cover-up. Because here's the twist, boss. This wasn't a one-time breakdown. This was a pattern. And Cassie was done protecting the man who once promised her the world. and instead handed her chains and a 5-star suite. But it gets even darker. As Cassie continued detailing the early days of her relationship, she revealed that these freak-off parties started not just early, but immediately. Like, within 7 days. 1 week into what the world thought was a romance, she says she was being prepped, styled, and instructed for events she didn't want to attend. Events she now calls the beginning of the end. They told me this was what being with him meant, she said. Obedience, loyalty, silence. And if you couldn't play the part, you'd be replaced. That quote alone hit like a freight train, because it revealed what so many people suspected but were too scared to say. That behind the glam squads, Instagram posts, and luxury lifestyle, Diddy was allegedly running a system, a machine, a pipeline of control where people weren't people, they were props. And Cassie? She was the main attraction. As the court took another break, you could feel it, the cracks forming in the empire, and the question hanging in the air: if this happened in week 1, what happened in year 1, year 10, and who else was involved? So where were we? Oh, right. Cassie had just told the world that by week 1 of dating Diddy, she was no longer a partner. She was a performer in his private empire of control. But what happened next took this case from scandal to straight-up conspiracy thriller. Because while Diddy's legal team scrambled to contain the courtroom damage, anonymous sources started leaking. And what they revealed confirmed everything. First up, an ex-bodyguard, known only as T, came forward in a late-night live stream hosted by a popular celebrity gossip account. With his face blurred and voice altered, he said, "Those parties Cassie mentioned, they were real. I worked security for 3 of them. NDA City, phones in locked boxes. Diddy ran them like military operations." According to T, Cassie was always there, but never as a guest. She wasn't attending, he said. She was starring. You could tell she didn't want to be there. She'd show up quiet, eyes down. The orders were always the same. Don't let her leave early. Wait, what? So now we're talking about not just emotional control, but physical detainment, and it gets worse. Another leak came from a former assistant who posted a now-deleted thread on X, formerly Twitter, listing coded names allegedly used for frequent party performers, all female, all under strict supervision. Cassie's name? Listed first. But the real twist came from a burner email dump sent to a CelebrityNews tip line. The file included what appeared to be internal event logs from 2014-2017. And guess what? Several documents described private parties hosted by a SC Enterprises at various luxury properties. The locations? Beverly Hills, Miami Beach, the Bahamas. Now closed estate in the French Riviera, and under staff roles, the documents listed security talent, Wrangler wardrobe handler, and a disturbing title, compliance officer. What kind of party needs a compliance officer, boss? Unless it's not a party, it's a program. And Cassie? She was at the center of it. The documents mentioned client-specific choreography and role assignments, strongly suggesting these weren't free-flowing social events. They were staged, curated, and documented.
You were in the courtroom. I want to get your sense of how the jury was reacting to Cassie's testimony throughout the week, especially the pictures and the texts that they got to see so far.
Well, I was in the overflow room today, but the consensus about the jury is that they've been pretty stoic. There was one juror who seemed to have a bit of a reaction when they were shown sealed photos. I believe it was about 2 days ago. These were freeze frames of Cassie and Sean Combs and an escort in an alleged freak-off still shots. So there was a little bit of a reaction there. But again, overall, the consensus also in the overflow room is just that people are shocked at a lot of this testimony, a lot of the evidence that's coming in. And it's tough. We are seeing, I guess, just like this side of Cassie that, unfortunately she's had to disclose to all of us to help get a conviction for Sean Combs. And you really feel for her because she's remained so composed throughout, her cross-examination, her the redirects, and she's 8.5 months pregnant, and we didn't see her lose her temper or just get, angry at all or frustrated. And I find that to be pretty incredible.
Suddenly, Cassie's courtroom words didn't sound exaggerated. They sounded like understatements. But while the prosecution was building its case with timelines, testimony, and now leaked files, Diddy's defense team launched a counterstrike. Their move? Dig up old text messages. Yup. They tried to paint a new picture of Cassie, one where she was still in love, still communicating, still calling him babe after the relationship ended. Screenshots were shown in court of affectionate messages. Cassie allegedly sent Diddy in 2019 and 2020, years after they split. And for a moment, the courtroom held its breath. Was this about to be the plot twist that killed the case? Not even close. Because Cassie didn't flinch. She addressed the messages directly on the stand and said, "Those weren't love texts. Those were survival texts. You keep things calm when you're scared. You smile when you're being watched. Boom. Checkmate. And if that wasn't enough," she added, "at the time, I was still afraid of what would happen if I told the truth. I was managing his. Mudat, not my feelings. That one line stole the air out of the room." Legal experts called her explanation textbook trauma response. Psychologists jumped on live news panels to explain coercive control and survivor communication patterns. And the defense's entire argument crumbled like stale cookies. Because in a world where public opinion moves faster than court transcripts, the internet chose its side fast. Within hours, Nushchai's stand with Cassie was trending. One viral TikTok stitched her courtroom quotes with real footage of her past interviews, the body language, the fake smiles, the interviews she dodged when asked about Diddy. Comments poured in. "We watched this woman lose herself on camera for years. He dimmed her light, and we thought it was normal celebrity stuff. This isn't just abuse. This is a systemic pattern of erasure." Meanwhile, Diddy? His image was melting in real time. His Instagram lost nearly 700,000 followers. In 4 days, endorsement brands started quietly deleting posts. A leaked internal memo from a major vodka sponsor said they were reassessing brand alignment. Translation? They're cutting him loose.
Said that if there was a time when you were getting beat up in a room and couldn't walk out, you would reimagine it in a way that you were actually able to leave the room. Do you see this potentially backfiring on the defense?
Oh, Brianna, you took the words right out of my mouth. Yes, you're exactly right. The defense needs to be really careful what they're doing here because she is a victim. She is a victim. She has put herself out there and saying that she survived these horrific instances of rape, of other assaultive behaviors, some of which we've seen evidence of on that videotape that CNN exclusively obtained and then broadcast, and thank goodness for that. And so with the defense trying to go down this road, trying to attack her therapy, the government's going to get right back up there and say, well, the only reason she needed to go to therapy and seek EMDR and the other types of therapy was because of the actions of your client, Combs' attorney team. So they're going to go right back at it and say that had she not been so brutally traumatized, she wouldn't have had to seek therapy, and that's a good thing. And certainly anybody on that jury who's ever been to therapy or knows anything about it, they're going to be thinking about how Cassie Ventura could be being traumatized right now, again, in having to relive all of the various questioning for days from both sides. So you're right, Brianna. This is a slippery slope that the defense team is on right now.
But behind the scenes, another storm was brewing because someone, we still don't know who, leaked surveillance snapshots allegedly pulled from a 2016 incident Cassie had described earlier. The pictures, were described in court only, not shown publicly, but multiple reporters confirmed what they saw. Cassie on the floor, her arms up. A figure resembling Diddy standing over her. No movement, just silence. The photos were grainy, low-res, but the mood, undeniable. And in case the defense wasn't sweating already, a witness came forward. A former makeup artist who had worked with Cassie for years, including during the Diddy era, testified that she frequently saw Cassie with bruises makeup around, her neck bandages on wrists, and the saddest phrase of all, eyes that looked scared all the time. Her voice cracked in court as she recalled Cassie canceling glam sessions because she didn't want to be seen that day. And suddenly, boss, this wasn't just Cassie's story. This was a pattern confirmed by the people around her. And what did Diddy do during this testimony? He laughed. Yep. Courtroom sources say he smirked, leaned back, and whispered something to his lawyer after the makeup artist finished crying on the stand. Bad move, because the jury noticed. So did the judge. And public opinion? Tanked. A change.org petition demanding an investigation into Diddy's past. Business partnerships involving female artists reached 350,000 signatures in 24 hours. Even celebrities joined in. Tina She posted, "The industry protects abusers. Not anymore." Keke Palmer reposted a clip of Cassie on the stand with the caption, "Speak truth, sis." And Erykah Badu tweeted simply, "We knew. We were just scared." And that's when the biggest headline of the week dropped. An unnamed music executive has turned over files to the court, allegedly containing party guest lists, contracts, and NDAs tied to Cassie-era events. You read that right. Somebody on the inside has flipped, and the contents of those files still sealed. But courtroom insiders say they contain payment logs, performer lists, and hotel security waivers with Diddy's name on them. Suddenly, the question shifted from did Cassie exaggerate to how deep does this thing go? By now, the courtroom wasn't just tense, it was radioactive. Cassie's testimony had detonated every lie built around Diddy's glossy empire. And with leaked footage, internal files, and a surprise witness all validating her story, the dam had officially burst, but the true fallout was just beginning. Because when the Department of Justice confirmed it was reviewing materials submitted through unofficial whistleblower channels, the energy shifted from courtroom drama to federal storm warning. Translation: Diddy wasn't just facing Cassie anymore. He was staring down the barrel of a multi-agency investigation. Let's break it down. Within 48 hours of those sealed documents hitting the system, the ones allegedly linking Diddy to orchestrated freak-off parties and NDA-covered guest lists, 3 major shifts happened. Brand exodus begins. Every brand even remotely tied to Diddy began ghosting him overnight. Ciroc Vodka, Silent, Revolt TV, removed his image from the homepage. Sean John Clothing quietly scrubbed old marketing images. One leaked email from a major ad partner read, "Given the severity of the allegations and the digital backlash, we are pausing all collaborations until further notice," which is corporate speak for, "We're done with him." Industry whispers turn into screams behind the scenes. Executives started flipping like pancakes. A music executive from a rival label anonymously spoke to a journalist. "We all knew Diddy had parties. What we didn't know was how structured, cold, and coercive it all was. Cassie just blew the doors open." Rumors began to spread of other women preparing to come forward. Dancers, assistants, even former publicists, who had once worked closely with Diddy during Cassie's relationship. One alleged victim posted a cryptic tweet. "I stayed silent. In 2015. Not anymore. I see you, Cassie." And then came the subpoenas. 3-3. The feds circle. In-sources confirmed that the FBI's Human Trafficking Task Force had formally contacted the prosecution team for access to Cassie's sealed testimony and supporting exhibits. Why? Because her description of the freak-off event sounded a lot like organized trafficking, even if it was packaged in designer labels and luxury hotels. One legal analyst summed it up perfectly. It doesn't matter how rich or famous someone is. If you're moving people using coercion and assigning sexual roles at private events, that's not a party. It's a crime scene with music. Oof, and while all this chaos swirled outside the courtroom, Diddy? He was imploding inside it. On day 9 of testimony, multiple reporters described his body language as unhinged. He sat with fists clenched. He whispered frantically to his lawyers. And when the judge admitted several new sealed exhibits into evidence, allegedly including booking records from private villas and payment logs from Cassie's phone, he exploded. Slamming his folder on the desk, he barked at his attorney. So loud the judge had to call for a recess. It was the first time in the trial Diddy had completely lost the image he built over decades. No cool, no confidence, just panic. Meanwhile, Cassie? She sat like a monument to composure, and the world noticed. News anchors praised her strength. Trauma experts called her testimony a blueprint in surviving coercive control. Celebs reposted her quotes like scripture, and the quote that went viral? "He didn't take my voice, he borrowed it. I'm just taking it back." Boss, that line alone? Billboard Top 10 energy, but even more shocking than her words was what came next. Cassie's legal team confirmed she'd kept digital records, years, of private messages, location pings, bank statements showing unexplained charges notes, documenting every freak-off event with dates, outfits, and names. This wasn't just emotional testimony, this was a forensic diary of destruction. And now, legal. Teams everywhere are scrambling, because if those records make it into public court, we're not just talking about Diddy anymore. We're talking high-profile music execs, TV producers, even corporate sponsors who attended these events under NDA protection. This could be the Harvey Weinstein moment for hip-hop, and let's be real. That's not an exaggeration. That's the storm cloud hanging over every record label, every talk show, every brand that ever benefited from Diddy's glow. Because if Cassie's testimony and her receipts link even one more celebrity to those parties, game over. And boss, the internet's already doing its job. Twitter sleuths are cross-referencing paparazzi timelines. TikTokers are analyzing old party photos and guest lists. Reddit threads are naming names that haven't even been brought up in court yet. It's chaos. And it's just getting started. Meanwhile, what's Diddy doing? He's trying to settle. Yup. Courtroom insiders revealed his team floated a private settlement offer to Cassie's lawyers mid-trial. Sources say the number had 8 figures and came with strict NDA terms. But Cassie? She refused. Her exact response, according to leaks? "I'm not here for silence. I'm here for accountability." And just like that, she sealed her role as the face of one of the biggest celebrity trials in recent memory. So now, where does this go? Well, legal experts say that if federal charges are filed, and it's looking more likely by the hour, Diddy could face racketeering charges, human trafficking allegations, witness tampering, obstruction of justice, not to mention the civil suits piling up behind the scenes. And boss, here's the wildest part. Even if Diddy somehow avoids conviction, his public image is gone. The endorsements? Gone. The streaming deals? Dropping. The political invites? Canceled. The legacy? Tarnished forever. Because you can spin a PR scandal. You can survive a bad album. You can even recover from public beef. But you don't come back from a courtroom where your ex says, "He turned me into a sex object in the first week," and then backs it up with receipts, witnesses, and files. One courtroom observer described it best. "We didn't watch a testimony. We watched an empire collapse. And now, the entire industry's on notice. So now the mask is off. We're not just talking about industry gossip. We're not speculating about rumors in the back of a nightclub. We're staring straight into the dark heart of fame, power, and control. And Cassie Ventura? She lit the match. She didn't just accuse a music mogul of manipulation. She mapped out the machine, the parties, the coercion, the receipts, the fallout. She stood there, pregnant, exhausted, and stone-cold focused, and told a jury that Sean Diddy Combs didn't just break her. He built a system to keep her broken, and now that system is cracking. But here's where you come in. Do you believe this case is just about two people? Or is it about a culture that's finally being exposed? Will Diddy walk away untouched again? Or is this the moment the public finally stops protecting powerful predators? And how many more women are watching this, waiting for the world to believe them next? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Every theory, every receipt, every name you think should be next. We're watching everything. And if you want to stay ahead of what they're trying to bury, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, because this trial isn't over. And if Cassie's telling the truth, it's just the beginning. The House of Combs is shaking, and when it falls, it won't fall quietly.